Oh, hello. So, this is the second year of Regeneration Who, and I'm just trying to make this bloody thing work. Let's go check out the convention.
Go.
Well, we're currently at the second year of Regeneration Who, and that is an RTD era doll, and it's slightly terrifying. So how long did this take to make?
A couple of 100 hours,
How
Wow. Impressive.
expensive is the whole thing?
not including my time, maybe $1,000 in materials.
And what was the most difficult and rewarding part of the build?
The wording part, all the people who want to take my pictures. Difficult part, probably the shoulders. They're still not as good as I want them to be.
What happened to the bump? You're missing a bump.
Battle damage.
Ooh.
Any Cybermen around here?
No.
There you go.
Fair enough.
I envied you. Yeah. Your character was absolutely brilliant. I was a bit of a wimp.
No, you were fantastic.
You weren't a wimp.
You screamed.
No. Victorian myth, you know. And
Exactly, that's what you were, a Victorian miss. Yeah, with a great pair of lungs. Right.
it didn't sound quite like that.
Lungs.
I've still got them.
I know, my bedroom's next door to her.
I did his last Doctor's appearance.
Oh, yes, that's
Yeah.
true.
Which I think, I just felt like I must have been really lucky, because when I got Perry, I got Pete Davis and then Colin Baker and then Pat Troughton. I must have done something right.
You was really, really hard.
Because it was like, you've got a regeneration, and I got to work with Pat as well, so and he was so nice. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, because Colin and I developed our relationship at this point, but he came in and he was so warm and so funny and so brilliant. You couldn't feel anything but comfortable.
There were no sides to Pat,
No.
was there, at all? He always used to call himself a jobbing actor. He was more than that, I can tell you. Really was.
And he said, tell her that she would have been the next companion to do the Sarah Jane Adventures. And that he'd even got the first scene planned. And what it was going to be was that a posh sports car would drive up in front of Sarah Jane's house, and you'd see the door open and this sort of high heels and somebody in a suit get out, walk up, you'd see the back view walking up to her front door, and then it would cut to her cute me as the door opened, and it would, cut round, and it would be me in this sort of posh suit, but how I am now. And he said, but don't worry, because she'd soon throw off the high heels, get the Doc Martens back on, and be
So, I just saw a panel with Nick Briggs, the voice of the Daleks and the leader of
It's true. It's true.
Big Finish, who's the creator of some of the most amazing Doctor Who stories ever. We talked about how to get
The
into...
most amazing.
That's the guy who owns it. All I want to do now is just spend all of my money getting Big Finish, and that's probably what's going to end up happening to all the money I brought with me. Here is the interview and the panel, and it was just really cool. Before you say anything, understand, yes, I agree, I need a haircut, but I haven't been able to do that yet, so I'm not doing that yet. But that is completely digressing. At the beginning of this panel, Nick Briggs was sitting there, and it was really interesting, because not only is he the voice of the Daleks and a writer and producer for Big Finish, he does producing, he makes some of the music, he does some of the sound design, he does basically everything that there is to do. The only thing that's keeping him from doing absolutely everything in the productions is the fact that he's only one person with a limited amount of time, and even then, he takes on far too much. But as he was sitting there, we had these little pictures, and you'll see this in the video, and as he was waiting for it to start, he stuck the microphone inside of it just to mess with the sounds, and it made me think a lot of Ben Burt, the sound designer of Star Wars.
This is Rob Shearman.
Hello, yes, and I've written a few audios. Yeah, I mean, not,
Award-winning.
some of them have won awards, some of them won brickbats. But
We've actually got very good hit rates actually for awards.
Yeah.
it's true, actually.
You're
yes.
writing all this down.
There will be a test.
You seem to be writing it all down.
Excellent.
So we're here to talk to you about the introduction of Big Finish.
Yes.
And do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, well,
Nick?
well, we do when we're, you know, on stands and selling CDs, we say things like Blood of the Daleks, get on for the 8th Doctor. We ask people what Doctor they like, you know, and if they like the 4th Doctor, we often say Destination Nerva, because it's the first one we did, or Energy of the Daleks, because it's in the first Tom Baker series we did, and it's got Daleks in it, you know. I suppose it's no coincidence that they're both written by me. Also Spare Parts and Chimes of Midnight, because, you know, they're classics, very highly regarded, quite rightly so. Any other starting points? We reckon? Storm Warning.
Dark Eyes.
Dark Eyes,
Season
yeah,
one.
yeah.
That's a good starting point again. There's quite a few starting points for McGann.
Many years later, Russell sent an email to India Fisher saying if there hadn't have been a Charlie, there would never have been a Rose. And some of the elements which we touched, I mean, it was very brave of Gary to actually, and it was a very progressive thing for Gary to actually move towards, and with Alan and so forth, to move towards a position where the Doctor and the companion could be in love.
Yeah.
Not in a sexual way, but in a very platonic way, but could be open about the fact they were in love with each other.
Yeah.
And that's what you got. And that I think, again, you know, Russell would be honest and say that channeled into what he brought to
acts as a
Rose.
bridge in time.
Yeah, totally. So there's a lot of things that we did that bridged between the old series and the new series. And that's one of them.
A lot of us younger people are very interested in getting into Big Finish, but it's such a big catalog that it's daunting both time-wise and monetarily. There have been some rumors online that at some point there might be able to see some service for Big Finish like Netflix, where you pay a certain amount a month and you get a certain amount. That's what I've heard, and I wanted to know if there was any credence to this and if we might be seeing something like that, because I know a lot of us would be very interested in something like that.
I mean, we've got to look at what happens outside the real world, as it were, because it's a big world out there.
I knew you were going to say that. That's just Jason gave that answer once when he was really tired on stage. He was rambling on about something. Anyway, it's a big world out there. It meant nothing. It became the catchphrase of that particular Chicago convention. Whenever we couldn't think of anything, so we go, it's a big world out there. It's a big Finnish world out there.
Yeah.
It's something, that
I mean,
we'd be interested in doing. Do you know, there's a really interesting, for me, not for you, so just go to sleep now, question about the future of downloading or streaming. Yeah. Because everyone thinks that the future will be streaming, but the point of streaming, you don't know how downloading will just get faster and more efficient, and people will have more space on their devices. So I don't know whether streaming is going to be the future, or whether downloading will be, because downloading will be so easy and quick and easy to store, and storage won't be a problem. So I don't know the answer to that. But
and downloading
part
is
of me
permanent.
thinks that part of me thinks that streaming will be the future, because we all use it. I mean, I subscribe to Netflix, and it's really cheap, and you can, you know, stream whatever you like.
It's a very good point, because I mean, if you look at how many productions Netflix has and how many productions Amazon have, they haven't got anything like this. To be honest, we've got far more product than they have.
And
So
most of what they do, and this is something worth remembering, you know, has already been paid for. Not the Netflix originals, no, they're made, and then they are made on a lower budget. But you know, everything we make is paid for by people buying it, and that's it. You know, so we have to make sure, because it's quite a niche market. That means a small-ish market, but we have to make sure that we can realistically get enough money from it to pay to make it. You know, which is why it's difficult when people come to Big Finish for the first time and they say, well, you know, I can pay $10 and get an entire 26-episode series, and you're asking me to pay whatever for 2 hours, you know, I'm just going to steal it, frankly. And you just think, well, that thing that's available for $10 for 26 episodes has been paid for by a television network and by advertising revenue. That's already dealt with, you know. They can sell it that cheap because all that money is just icing on the cake, you know.
But the early episodes are all heavily
And that's
discounted
what-
now.
Exactly.
I was gonna
we
say,
do
yeah.
discount when we can, but
And some of the sales you guys have are ridiculous.
Yeah, they're
in a good way.
Yeah,
in a good way,
ridiculous.
But how many episodes do you have now that are streaming, or not streaming, they're downloadable for like $3? There's
$2.99. There's there's 50 from the first set, and then there's various others along the way. There's probably best part of maybe 100. Sue would know for definite, but there's something like 150, I would imagine. So in terms of it being introduced to Big Finish, so for example, Arrangements for War, I do believe is in the first 50. Oh, actually,
It's 57 in
Is
fact.
it?
Oh,
Right,
no,
forget
it's
that then. However, you could go to.
There's lots of free stuff as well on the site.
Yeah.
If you know.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll point the viewers to those things.
Oh my good, Davros, Master, great stories. All available at $2.99. I mean,
But it is daunting, isn't it, when there's so much stuff? It's the reason I've never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's like, because people go, oh, this is great, and I don't have enough time, you know. But the fact
Just
of the
skip
matter is-
season 7.
Okay. But the fact of the matter is, you can listen to almost any Big Finish, and it's fine, you know. There are jumping on points for stories, but all of them, we've made sure that all of them function on their own,
separate.
you know. And it will only, and if it is in the middle of a story arc, and you think, oh, well, how did it get there? It only serves to lure you in to buy some more.
I'm getting some really strange readings, and I don't know where they're coming from. It's aliens. So, we are going to be going into the vendor room to see all of the things they're selling us. Plenty of things, from audio adventures to comics to merchandise to homemade little things. And it's really, really cool. And I'm probably going to be spending a lot of money in this place. So I'm at the vending area, and they're showing us all sorts of these cool, like, fake weapons and gear and stuff. But they've also got something that could actually save you from a bad guy.
Standard walking stick. I'll let you pull it down since you're videoing it. It's got a signal light. It has a flashlight, so you can light your way at night. But unlike a regular walking stick, when it's red, it's armed, and when it's armed,
That will actually hurt you. They've been telling me that that will put you on the ground.
yeah, this one is my demo unit. It's only 1,000,000 volts. I make them at 1.5 million volt rechargeable. Only 1,000,000.
I want one.
So I'm currently in the vendor area, and here we have a prop maker for the actual original series. He made this Dalek and helped with the Cybermen heads, the Cybermen gun, and this is him. So a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
What's your favorite thing you ever built for the show?
The Dalek.
The Dalek?
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about it?
You sit inside it and be comfortable.
Do you have a personal favorite of the cyber heads that you made?
Difficult. The later ones. This one right here.
So the Earthshock ones.
That kind of stuff right there.
Yeah, they're classic.
Those are fun to do. I'm not a big lover of the Iron Man type Cybermen. They're too, I don't know.
Too robotic?
It's got away from the bland, faceless features of the old Cybermen. The blank horror. Somebody in there, but no features at all. Now they just look like wind-up block toys, which is a shame. That's my personal opinion.
I agree completely. Well, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for yours.
So I'm not going to be able to buy it, but I thought I asked and they said I could try it on. This is really nice. Usually the licensed products aren't usually the best, but this is nice.
Do spin.
I will buy it next time because I will see how to shop next time. So
That's fine. Or you can go online.
I can do that too.
Okay. Oh wow. Alright, ready? Oh sorry. 1, 2. Hey, what am I doing?
Go.
It's going.
Go board.
Alright.
So this kid is Tiny TARDIS. He's got a little YouTube channel of his own where he's been interviewing people from this con, and he's going to have a con video this year, which I'm going to put a link on his face. Click his face, go to the video, but not until after you finish this video. So, how old are you?
I'm 13.
Yet you're making content on YouTube, incredibly professional content. How, like, what made you want to start doing this?
I mean, I've always been interested in filmmaking and stuff like that, and I've always been obsessed with YouTube, so, you know, I kind of just have a good feel of...
Favorite YouTubers then?
My favorite YouTuber, that's hard. I like Jack's films. He's a comedy YouTuber.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's pretty cool. I'd say he's pretty up there.
I might suggest, do you know Tomska? I feel like you like it. But if you like Doctor Who, you like Doctor Who. 5 Who Fans is a great channel, one of the best. And they've got these fan audio dramas. They're just hysterical. They're hilarious. How much of this is you? How much of this is your parents? Because, like, I imagine at the beginning they needed help a lot. But, like, how are you starting to take over more of the work?
Really, I mean, I started the channel and I had some very long and somewhat embarrassing interviews that I did through web chat, and those I really set up myself. With their help, like, I've contacted a lot of people for my interviews, but I've been able to do some things just through connections and such. But they help drive me to a lot of things, and they hold the camera. And
eyeballs in them.
All that.
Cool. Well, it was very nice. Well, remember, click his face to check him out. And, yeah, this has been cool. Yeah.
Fine, they'll do it to your blaster.
Because, you know, I've been a fan since the 80s. None of us believed it would ever really come back.
Well, yeah.
And the fact that we were on it didn't mean that we still believed it. I mean, I went to those first meetings still expecting that someone would turn around and knock on our door and say, get out. You know, this has all been a horrible mistake. We don't like Doctor Who here at the BBC. We shouldn't have ever, you know, this was only a joke. Or indeed actually one of those sort of things where they try and get you along to a meeting so they can arrest you for some previous crime. We'd all get there and they'd say, well, thanks for responding to this. You're all here under false pretenses. We're now going to take you to jail because of tax evasion. and that wouldn't have surprised me either. So getting that evidence that the show was coming back was really astonishing.
And I know, Chris, he had such a difficult job. I've talked about this with friends before, because not only do you have the fans of the original series who are going to come in, they're going to judge this guy.
Yeah.
They're going to judge him. They're going to judge him harder than anyone. But then also, you have the new fans they're trying to attract, because you can't you can't exist in a bubble. It's a growing thing, and so you have to simultaneously convince all these new people that this is a guy you want to watch for however long, and then convince this whole group of, you know, this other group of fans that this is the same guy that they've been, you know, sort of hoping for him to come back.
In some strange way, I think Chris, though, had an easier task, in a funny way, because Chris didn't care about it in that way. David, I mean, within a year, I knew David quite well before we got the Doctor. I knew David before I was on Doctor Who doing a TV show. And had David been the first Doctor, he would have been terrified, because he was a massive fan, and he knew what the responsibility of that would be. For Chris had genuinely never seen the show. He can't. And in fact, it was only, I was at the launch for Rose in Cardiff weeks before it was actually broadcast. He came to me and said, Rob, I've just been watching some Doctor Who. And I said, oh, right. He said, no, I don't mean mine. I watched some Tom Baker. I said, it's really good. He said, I wish I'd known that while I was doing it. I could have done it a bit more like that. And I said, well, you know.
And now he's sort of...
Wasted opportunity, mate, I said, but never mind. But in some strange way, Chris treated it like there for a job. He didn't care particularly about it being a big revival. And every Doctor who's come along since, I mean, I was there for the first read-through for Matt, because I was briefly on Series 5 for the bit.
And I heard that, like, Matt hadn't actually seen any until he got cast, and then he kind of went back.
Yeah, that's right. But of course, he was also coming into it that he was taking on this massively popular show that David had made into a huge global success. And David, of course, had the responsibility of coming onto a show that was, you know, pretty popular, and knowing he was a fan of it. And Peter's been a massive fan of it. So in some strange way, Chris felt, I suspect, a little bit, well, I'm doing a job, and he was excited by it, and he wanted to do it the best way he could.
Yeah.
But the responsibility of it didn't, I suspect, weigh as heavily on him as it would have done on the others. BBC audience, and there was the ITV audience. And the ITV audience were looked at as being more sort of working class. I mean, you know, there's a standard joke that in certain families, you know, we weren't allowed to watch ITV in my home because we were upper middle class.
Oh, gosh.
Whereas Chris, being northern, ITV was more of the people, and the BBC, you know, it's a strange thing because, you know, obviously now we're in this massive multi-channel environment.
Yeah.
But back then there was such a sort of collective idea of identity based upon the sorts of shows you watched. And David, you know, and Stephen Moffat living a few miles apart from each other up in Scotland, but having never met as kids, were massive BBC people and watching BBC drama, but Chris Eccleston wasn't. I got her to write down a list of reasons, as a non-fan, why she found the Daleks embarrassing, and they were including things like, well, what's that sink plunger? I said, all right, sink plunger, make sure it kills somebody by sucking their face off. And she said, they can't go upstairs, and I said, no, well, they can, but all right, I'll do that one again and pretend I made it up. And they can't even turn around in corridors, can they? And I said, yeah. She said, how big a corridor is it going to be? They turn around, and I said, right, swivelling midsection. But what she really said was, what she found very embarrassing about them, she said, they have no conversation. They have no characters at all, because all they can do is just rant and shout and say exterminate. And so I went into writing that thinking I've got to try and address all those issues where they're not quite as embarrassing to my wife. Because I knew that actually that was probably a basic sense, you know, a sense of opinion. I mean, it was, we had reached the position with Doctor Who being off the air in Britain where Daleks had become a joke. I mean, that we had some ads for a chocolate wafer called Kit Kat. I'm not sure you have Kit Kat.
Oh, yeah, we have Kit Kats here.
Oh, we love Kit Kat.
We had Daleks doing that. I mean, Daleks would be in the ad, chasing around saying, peace and love, Kit Kats.
We love you! Give us a cuddle!
Hello, I'm a huge fan of a lot of your work, particularly Chimes of Midnight and Dalek. I feel like the fact that you haven't returned is a crime. But
thank you.
Russell D. Davies was known for rewriting the scripts that he was given and editing, and he was very involved in there.
Yeah.
Was there one thing that you really liked in your version of the script that he changed that you wish had stayed?
Well, it didn't happen much on year one. It's an odd thing. That was a growing. That's sort of this idea at the very beginning of his time that it was a writer-led show. And he said to us in the first meetings, "These are your scripts, and we want them to stay your scripts." And it became a thing where the BBC above him began to say afterwards, we don't understand why this is a series written by many different writers. So beginning more with David's time, he began to impose himself on doing writes and polishes. A lot of, so year one, those scripts are basically ours. I mean, there'll be the odd line change here and there. So actually, no, not an awful lot really. I mean, there were things that got cut, but I'm glad they got cut. It has a different thing, doesn't it? Yeah. It does. I mean, there are things because that's what happens in edits. But generally speaking, I mean, it's not like Russell didn't master them. I mean, I would deliver my early drafts of Dalek are terrible and have different characters in, and it's all about Van Statten's wife. And so Russell manoeuvres you into doing the script he would like you to have written, but you do end up writing it yourself. So it's yeah. So, but I've no regrets. I mean, I really enjoyed writing with Russell as well. I think that Russell is, I mean, I'm not a very experienced TV writer. I mean, I'm about there. Russell is extraordinary. I mean, everything I got from Russell always made me very, very happy. I've never had a situation on TV before where you'd go to a meeting and you get your work savaged, because you would, and then you'd leave always feeling actually excited and more confident, because that's what he did to you. He made you feel better about the fact that you were rubbish.
This question is mostly for Fraser, although it's open to everyone. There is quite a reputation that Patrick and Fraser had for causing quite a bit of trouble and playing pranks and such. Are there any particular pranks that you remember more fondly than the others? Anything you're particularly proud of? And for the others, are there any ones that that maybe you found the most annoying then, but remember the most fondly now?
Good question.
I can't honestly say I remember this fondly. I remember it. Do you remember this phrase? Kilt?
Oh, yes.
My kilt? Yes. Yeah. We were at rehearsal. We used to rehearse in a church hall, and we rehearsed a scene, and there were chairs around the edge of the room, and Pat Fraser and I had rehearsed. We'd finished our scene, we went and sat on the seats, and I probably had been out late the night before. I was only 21 after all. And slightly nodded off on the seat while somebody else was rehearsing. And Pat was sitting one side of me, Fraser was sitting the other. And all of a sudden I was being nudged in the ribs from both sides, with Pat and Fraser saying, "Patters, Patters, come on, wake up, it's us, it's us." And I shot out of my seat like that. And my skirt stayed behind. And while I'd been nodding off, they'd undone my skirt at the start, which actually was a little kilt. And so I stepped into the middle of the rehearsal room in my knickers. It was not nice, Fraser.
It's great.
I can remember going so scarlet, and in my embarrassment, I ran out of the double doors of the rehearsal room into the hallway, bumped straight into the vicar. For some unknown reason, I said, "Oh, morning, vicar," and curtsied to him. Why? I don't know. No, that was bad, very bad, very, very bad.
So, sorry, you missed quite a few things. I've seen about 3 panels after this camera died, and Nick Briggs was in most of them. I felt weird, because I felt like I've been stalking him throughout the day, but it's mostly just that he's got all the interesting panels. I'm currently headed to the Doctor Who concert with Dominic Glynn, the orchestrator, well, the person who arranged the Sixth Doctor's theme. And so I'm really excited about that. I mentioned that I'm not too much of a fan of the version that he put on for the Sixth Doctor himself, but he's made plenty of remixes since then. He was kind of under a time crunch when he did the Sixth Doctor's theme, and everything he's released since that has been excellent, and I'm really excited.
That's
You better say something nice or she'll kill you.
Yay, Billy.
So we have one Missy, and who is our
I
other contestant?
know everything.
I'll just say that just so, wait. But now you are going to kill me.
It's like I was just calling the doctor.
Thank God.
Okay.
I am the doctor, obviously.
Okay, so I'm going to, in order to try to save my own hide, pick Missy. Yeah, it does work. You just have to put it up real close.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah. All right.
I want to wipe that off.
Missy, please select
I'm Spartacus.
They're your
the
fault.
puppy.
No, I'm Spartacus.
Which one's the puppy?
One is afraid of the bird.
Oh boy.
Like how I changed.
So the scaredy puppy gets a question. What is the penguin's full name? The penguin in Batman.
I knew that.
I don't know. You never can know with you.
Well, he's not actually a bird, so I'm not scared. And I am actually a huge Batman fan, I would like to confirm.
So like
The
this is
Christopher
Sean
Nolan
Kirby
films. But
doctor.
the full name of the penguin is
Just another
Oswald Cobblepot.
Oswald Cobblepot. Do you agree or disagree?
Are we going with middle names too?
That is the name that she has said. So
I'll agree.
agree is correct. Okay, Doctor, choose your selection.
River Song.
River Song!
I was going to be upset, but I can't actually argue that.
Demons run, but count the cost. The battle's won, but blank is lost. When a good man goes to war.
Are you freestyling at me?
What is blank?
This is not a cabinet battle right now?
You can be anywhere in the world tonight, but you're here at Gallifrey Squares.
The answer is virginity.
What is blank? Demons run, but count the cost. The battle's won, but blank is lost when a good man goes to war.
I got this one. Battle's won when a good team versus all.
Oh, that's getting lost early in the game.
Battle, all hope for humanity, all hope. The battle's won, but the child is lost.
The child, do you agree or disagree?
I could not agree more.
You could not agree more.
I like the way he thinks and dresses.
So, you have won the square. Excellent. So, Missy, where do you select? Neither. Six-time Grammy Award-winning singer Phil Collins was singer and drummer for what popular English band?
I care nothing about these trivial things. The only things I care about is the genesis of the master race and doing the winds of Davros.
All right.
That is my answer.
What is your answer again? Just as short as possible.
Davros.
Davros! Yes. Six-time Grammy Award-winning singer Phil Collins, a member of the band Davros.
Sorry, but I got to say false.
False.
Disagree.
Disagree, yes.
To be fair, Davros also can't dance.
11.
Well, I'm gonna have to go based on the dress sense. So the one wearing the bow tie, please.
Is one of them wearing a bow tie?
Yes, 11. Well, not in the picture. In the picture, he's wearing absolutely nothing except for maybe a wig. But,
Do you want to borrow this scarf?
yes, he does. He definitely does.
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
5 billion.
Over 9,000!
You said it. Oh, well, this is a difficult question. Let's see here. How much wood? We have to do the math. First of all, your average woodchuck can chuck about 13 pallets of wood in it. Do we have a time limit on this?
Yes, the time limit is yesterday.
You shouldn't have let me talk then.
Luckily, we have many a TARDIS.
Is the plural of TARDIS tardy or TARDIS?
It's TARDI.
TARDISes.
Or TARDISes. It depends on which.
Slightly ironic. TARDIS is TARDIS.
Tardai, is that what you call it?
All right, Doctor, give us an answer. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck? A woodchuck could chuck wood.
11.
11. Agree or disagree?
I'm gonna have to disagree.
You disagree. 11 is not the answer. The answer is a woodchuck could chuck as much wood as a woodchuck could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
Exactly. My head hurts.
Missy, what do you select?
Do you have future radiation poisoning?
You select the professor. The AlphaGo computer recently became the first AI to beat a human being when it beat Go master Lee Sodal. What was the name of the machine that took down chess master Garry Kasparov in 1997?
Oh my God.
AI, you speak of AI. You got it all wrong. You should have done an AI until 2043. That would be.
Deep Blue, do you agree or disagree?
Disagree.
You disagree. Unfortunately, the professor would never lead you wrong. It was, in fact, Deep Blue.
Actually.
Tell that to Ace. Yeah, just don't ask Ace. The board is still alive for you, 11.
So I will pick the professor.
Yeah, just been.
You pick the professor.
Although I hope, yeah, I will just trust him a bit more than you did.
Okay, so, Professor, as a bit of a Renaissance man, I'm sure you're well versed in the tales of the world's most renowned poets. What lyrical genius joins you on the list of famous people who have been referred to as people with Machiavellian tendencies?
Eminem.
Eminem!
I've decided to disagree.
You decided to disagree, and were correct to disagree, because the answer was Tupac. And you win. Thank you to both contestants. Okay, so, do you want water bottle number 1? Or do you want to select what is in bag number 1, box number 2, or ice bucket number 3?
It's definitely not the box. $1. I say ice bucket.
Ice bucket! First time the ice bucket has been opened. And you win 1 roll of toilet paper!
You may or may not use it to wipe the mouth of Donald Trump.
And the award for the most obscure costume related to Doctor Who is Salamander.
From the epic, The Enemy of the World, Patrick Troughton versus Dr.
Hello.
What are you doing? Ah!
You're worth more to me dead, bodacious.
Why? At the moment I feel far from superior. This is all a mystery to me.
Surely there's a catalyst.
Oh yes, yes, as much as state the obvious. I know that his functions confuse the impulses from there, but this goo. What's it for?
By the way, remember what I said about how I'd be spending all my money on Big Finish? Well, here we go. This is Doctor Who Deadline, which is about a world where Doctor Who never got off the ground. And this is the longest Doctor Who story I could find that for the least amount of money with the 8th Doctor and Charlie Pollard, who it's a great TARDIS team. And I look forward to listening to these. So it's currently the morning of the final day of Regeneration Who. I'm currently waiting. We're about to be seeing a panel about the missing episodes, which is a subject that is very important to me.
The Abominable Snowman, that was fantastic. The Wheel of Space. I mean, it just goes on and on. And what idiots the BBC were. I mean, they didn't know at the time, did they? They had this idea that it was like a theatrical production, and that no one would want to see it again. It was like a sort of live performance. You did it, and then you moved on and did something else, and you recorded evidence. You know, I suppose in a way you can't blame them, but I do. They wanted to contact me about telling me how they were doing. You know, they just wanted to tell me what's going on. My brother was contacted as well, and it was all hush-hush until the day of announcement. There was a lot of people phoning up going, I've heard this rumour about, and on Twitter, you know, Michael, have you heard this rumour about this and this? But I couldn't say anything. But it's great. I mean, it was just...
Because, you know, that weekend was a very weird weekend. And I remember the following weekend, it was affected the viewing of ordinary television so much, they repeated the first episode followed by the second episode. So that was one thing. But the main reason I remember, and you may have to help me on the actual title, but you know, when you become an actor, you're sometimes afflicted by what we call corpsing, which is just giggling for no reason in the middle of scenes. And it can get quite difficult to cope with this. But I always remember there was one scene from, I think, a Patrick Troughton Cyberman story that was set on the moon, I seem to remember. That terrified me so much at the time that all I had to do was remember that scene and it would stop me laughing. Wow, it's pretty pathetic, isn't it? It used to make me shiver whenever I thought, years after I first saw it. And I discovered that was the only way to stop me laughing in the middle of the scene. But, you know, when those giggles get out of control, when it becomes, there's no reason anymore why you're laughing, you just can't stop. I just would have to recall this moment of being terrified by that scene of the Cybermen, I think, were kind of either behind a plastic or behind ice or something, or frozen.
So if ever we come and see you in the play,
yeah,
and the rest of the cast are falling around, and you're standing there with a look of terror on your face. You all know why.
Yes. I was very happy to work with the Daleks, particularly. Actually, what surprised me about the Daleks was that they moved like grease lightning. I thought they would sort of be lumbering along. They used to race around those corridors. And in those days, it was, you know, we had the people inside sitting at a desk at the side with microphones were the voices of the Daleks. And they would just be looking at a monitor doing the voices as they came along. And at one point they moved so quickly, I think we were doing running down a corridor sequence. That's a surprise, isn't it? And I was being chased by Daleks. And they were so quick I hadn't got to where I was meant to be. So the voice off stage said, Mr. Bugger. I'd actually seen one when I was growing up. They had an exhibition of Daleks in a local sort of town hall where I grew up. So I'd seen one before, and they were always much bigger than I imagined. That was a big thing. For some reason I imagined them being sort of that size. Sorry, Colin.
Yes, of course, when you see your first Dalek, it is quite a moment. My memory of their speeding corridors is the same as yours. Oh. I do remember it if there was a wire, because they had 4 casters on the bottom, swivel casters.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And the thing would spin round and they would lurch. The top would do that. At the end of my filming session of Revelation, I'd gone out to the bar for a glass of orange juice to celebrate the joy of the day, and I had to go back to my dressing room to get something. And I took a shortcut, which was through the studio, which only had emergency lighting on, so it was dark, but you could see your way through. And all on its own, in the middle of the floor, as they cleared the sets, was one Dalek. And as I walked across the floor, the eye stalk followed me. And I got the shiver that you're supposed to get. I was alone in a large empty space with an empty Dalek. And it was following me across the room. What had happened was the guy who'd been operating it had gone back to oil it because he'd been squeaking all day. So he was spraying the inside so it could make a noise.
Yes, that was his story.
But for 1 second, I got what it was to be afraid of a Dalek.
And that was the last thing I saw. I have to be out of here by 1, which means I've got to leave a bit early. But that was Regeneration Who. I hope you have enjoyed yourselves. You can click on the Dalek eye stalk to see last year's video, click on my head to subscribe. The information will be in the description below, and I cannot wait for next year's.